Man arrested for threatening TENGKU MAIMUN. Finland's Prime Minister takes drug tests and 79 million ringgit to address SIMUNJA'Ns erosion issue. Those are the headlines for tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Muhammad Yusuf and this is TVS Nightline. We begin with our top story. A 30-year-old man was arrested by the police after he allegedly threatened Chief Justice TENGKU MAIMUN Tuan Mat, who heads former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak's SRC International Corruption Appeal. The suspect was arrested at his residence in Puchong, while his mobile phone and SIM card were also seized. According to Bukit Aman's head of corporate communication, Skandar Guru Anandan, the case will be investigated under the Sedition Act 1948. Prior to the arrest, the suspect made a posting on Facebook that TENGKU MAIMUN would be assassinated if the innocent man, which refers to Najib, was punished. The post was made under an account by the name Apis Bon. Skandar Guru advises the public that the police take the matter seriously and action would be taken against those who misuse social media to post threats to others. As Najib's case develops, many have issued threats against TENGKU MAIMUN on social media, which prompted the Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Ekrel Sani Abdullah Sani to order Bukit Aman's Criminal Investigation Department to undertake an investigation against threats that were made. Prime Minister of Finland Sanna Marin has denied any allegations of her abusing illegal drugs and has taken a drug test to prove her innocence. This was the latest development in the case following publication of several clips of her partying, which had gone viral on social media.
Pidän näitä syytöksiä erittäin raskaina ja painavina ja oma oikeusturvani takia, vaikka pidänkin kohtuuttomana myös vaatimusta huumausainetestistä, niin oma oikeusturvani takia ja pyyhkiäkseni tällaiset mahdolliset epäilyt olen tänään käynyt huumausainetestissä, jonka tulos tulee noin viikon kuluessa.
Many Finns supported the young leader for combining her high-profile career with her private life, but there were also a few who questioned her judgment. The video was originally posted in a private Instagram account, and Marin knew she was being filmed, but never thought it would be leaked. Marin added that she and her fellow female ministers have been targeted with hate speech for their gender and appearance in office. Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki backed his PM counterpart, saying the Finnish Prime Minister had a good reason to go out as she was happy that Finland is joining NATO.
Cóż, ja mogę powiedzieć, że widziałem ten filmik z tańczącą panią premier Sanną Marin i uważam, że pani premier ma powody do radości, ponieważ Finlandia właśnie weszła do NATO. A więc jeżeli z tej okazji pani premier Finlandii troszeczkę zakosztowała więcej Finlandii i w związku z tym tańca, to nie ma w tym nic strasznego. Bardzo cieszę się z tego, że ona tutaj taką dawką radości nas wszystkich uraczyła.
The Sarawak government has approved a total of 79 million ringgit to address erosion issues that have plagued SIMUNJA'n for a long period of time. The mitigation project will be implemented in 3 phases by the Integrated Regional Samarahan Development Agency, or ERSDA, with the first phase slated to begin within the next 6 months.
Akisan datang saya dia no ya bubuk. Baru pola bubuk. Jadi saya telah buat kajian. Saya minta DID buat kajian supaya jangan bubuh lagi. Dimasuk ke dalam. Saknya si bubuh dan nya kuat. Benteng ya, macam waterfront, terus dielokkan. Lah kaya kita malah sungai masuk dalam SIMUNJA'n. Kaya ada kaset pakai nahan air. Apabila air pasangnya masuk ke dalam, kalau air surutnya keluar. Jadi ada pressure kepada benteng. Yang terpaksa kita malah jual.
An additional 3 million ringgit was also allocated by the state government for IRSDA to develop SIMUNJA'Ns very own esplanade to create a new iconic location for the area. At the same time, Abang Johari also disclosed that 2 new water channels will be built to resolve water problems in Gedong and its surrounding areas, including SIMUNJA'n.
Jadi kita luluskan air itu daripada Semerahan menyeberang Batang Sadung. Tinggal 7 kilometer lagi. Jadi air kelak akan datang daripada Semerahan. Semerahan sebenarnya datang daripada Kuching. Kita tambahkan siap pipe yang besar. Saya menyeberangkan jambatan Sadung supaya pipe yang boleh dibak oleh jambatan sampailah ke Semunjan. Untuk dari Semerahan, sikitnya lagi dari Serian. Jadinya ada 2 saluran pipe ke Semunjan supaya air sentiasa ada hingga tahun 2030.
On other development projects, Abang Johari said SIMUNJA'n will have a new district office complete with staff quarters. An affordable housing scheme will also be implemented.
Sports should not be politicized. Sarawak's Minister of Youth, Sports and Entrepreneur Development, Datuk Seri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah, said this when it was known that the Taekwondo event will not be included in the 20th SUKMA Games held in September. He said in disappointment that the event should not be cancelled, as it is one of the events that people are looking forward to.
The minister also explained that the issue bothered him because Sarawak's Taekwondo athletes are able to win medals in the event.
This is something which I'm not happy myself. Yeah, probably because for the last 3 SUKMA, Sarawak has been doing very well in Taekwondo. We've been delivering many goals, and because of that, probably the organizer feel they do not want the sports to be contested. Nanti Sarawak sapu lagi.
He was speaking after officiating the premiere of Sarawak Borneo Cup International Taekwondo WTF Championship 2022. He also added that the plans to build a high-performance sports centre have been approved by the state government.
Bersebelahan dengan Sarawak Sport Village adalah our centre of high performance. Our centre of high performance seperti Bukit Jalil lah, kita nak ada tempat kita sendiri untuk kita meningkatkan atlet-atlet. Kadang-kadang kita tidak dapat menunggu Kuala Lumpur. Bukan saya nak kutuk, tapi kadang-kadang terlalu banyak politik dalam pembangunan sukan.
He said that to produce quality athletes, all parties must train the athletes without any regard for what language they speak or their background. At the same event, Datuk Seri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah also disclosed the plans that Sarawak will be opening a sports gallery to show the legacy of local athletes. He said that the gallery will be a place for newer athletes to get inspiration.
Kita akan tahu di mana kita hendak mempamerkan sejarah-sejarah mereka yang telah mengharumkan nama Malaysia, mengharumkan nama Sarawak dalam dunia sukan. Kita punya Sport Village, insyaAllah tidak lama lagi akan siap. Saya percaya di situ kita boleh letakkan galeri untuk mempamerkan siapakah jago-jago sukan daripada Sarawak yang telah mengharumkan nama Sarawak di pesada dunia, di pesada Malaysia dan juga dalam region ini. Untuk atlet-atlet yang baru, beliau-beliau yang baru dapat melihat siapakah yang telah menjadi juara inspirasi, yang boleh menjadi inspirasi kepada.
The said gallery will be established in the Sarawak Sports Village premises, which will be ready soon.
A standard operating procedure SOP system needs to be enforced so that to make sure that SIC projects are delivered as per schedule. Deputy Premier Dato' Ahmad Douglas Ugahambah said the Ministry of Infrastructure and Port Development MIPD and the Public Works Department JKR are planning to have a seminar to brainstorm ideas and proposals to end SIC projects.
He also reminded the ministry and department officers that GPS government has a very high expectation of the delivery of the projects. Uga added that it was very important if the department teams of engineers, technical workers, and the consultants had a work plan to ensure a contractor working on a project could complete it according to plan when monitoring the progress of a project. Also present were Deputy Minister of MIPD, Datuk Majang Renggi, MIPD Permanent Secretary Chiu Chiu Yao, Bintulu Resident Datuk Jack Aman, and JKR Head of Project Mihan Jorai.
3 personal information should always be kept private and not be shared to any third or unknown party. These are username, password, and the transaction activation code or TAC to prevent scammers or hackers from accessing your banking account. If these information are shared carelessly, online criminals can steal money to their heart's content, as what had happened recently to a 45-year-old man from Cebu who lost almost 10,000 ringgit.
According to Cebu District Police Chief, Assistant Commissioner ACP Zulkifli Suhaili, the victim was contacted by an individual who impersonated a bank officer from HSBC Bank in Kuala Lumpur. The scammer had conducted a modus operandi that many of us are familiar with, informing the victim that he had an overdue payment for his credit card. Though denial of having such overdue, the call was then forwarded to a supposed staff of Bank Negara Malaysia who asked for the victim's personal details to undertake an alleged investigation on the account. This action has successfully persuaded the victim into surrendering the aforementioned details, to which incurred a total loss of 9,976 ringgit from the bank account. The case was then reported to the police and is currently investigated under the Section 420 of the Penal Code for cheating. Zulkifli gave a stern warning to the public to be cautious when receiving a suspicious call, especially those who claim they are from the bank. He added the call should be reported to the police immediately.
In the spirit of the upcoming National Day celebration, the younger generation should cherish the sacrifices made by those who have fought for the country's independence so that they are able to continue the legacy of protecting and developing Malaysia for the benefit of future generations.
Nikmat yang kita nikmati pada hari ini adalah hasil perjuangan. Perjuangan datuk nenek moyang kita. Dan menjadi tanggungjawab kita, lebih lagi generasi baru, untuk memastikan bahawa negara kita ini akan terus maju dan mempunyai masa depan yang lebih baik.
At the same time, Tengah also urged Sarawakians to practice a healthy lifestyle by doing recreational activities such as cycling. He was speaking at the closing ceremony of the charity cycling fun ride in conjunction with the celebration of the Ambang Kemerdekaan organised by the Management Committee of Masjid Besar Lawas held in Lawas Public Park.
Jadi saudara dan saudara, inilah gaya hidup yang harus kita amalkan demi untuk kesihatan kita. Kesihatan itu penting dan salah satu daripadanya ialah kita berbasuh. Kesihatan tubuh badan itu penting supaya bukan saja badan kita cergas, minda kita juga cergas, pemikiran kita juga cergas.
Tengah hopes that this opportunity can be used as much as possible by 300 participants from Sabah in order to explore and understand different cultures in neighboring states. The relationship between the two states will strengthen the relationship and unity of the multiracial people in this nation.
Coming up right after the break, economists gave points to sustain Malaysia's GDP, and glaciologists suggest that Germany's glaciers will be gone in 15 years. Right here on TVS Nightline. Stay tuned. This is TVS Nightline. Now onto our recap. Economists believe that Malaysia's growth is set to be healthy throughout 2022, but will Malaysia be able to maintain its growth projection of 5.3% to 6.3%, especially when there is talk of 8.9% gross domestic product GDP to be achieved by the end of this year? Now, earlier this week, we had the chief economist from Juai IQY, Mr. Shan Said, who gave us his opinions on how the country's GDP is maintained and remains sustainable against global inflation.
I think at the start of the year, we said that Malaysia's GDP will be trading between 4 and 5%. After the recent Q2 numbers, we expect the economy to grow between 6.5 and 7%. It is based on the premise that macroeconomic stability remains pretty strong. When I talk about macroeconomic stability, I talk about political stability, economic stability, and financial stability. FDI numbers are coming up. The aggregate demand, the domestic demand, is pretty solid at the moment. You see the consumption patterns are on the rise ever since the economy has opened. And most importantly, the government has done vaccination of almost 98% of the population, which is pretty significant. And that has given a boost and support to the government to open up the economy much faster than many other governments. Overall, if you see the trade numbers have touched 270 billion. They are up 43%. In first half of the year, the trade numbers are up 28%. So that really drives the GDP outlook. In terms of numbers, yes, we have always followed Bank Negara's numbers, and we think that these numbers are quite accurate. And Bank Negara has always been quite accurate in terms of the projection when it comes to GDP. So overall, I think we have revised our forecast for Malaysia this year, and we expect that Malaysia's GDP will be trading between 6.5 and 7% this year. And we at Juai IQY remain quite buoyant on the economic outlook.
However, Shan said Malaysia has been spending in excess of its revenue every year since 1998 by issuing debt. Direct federal government debt, which stood at 824 billion ringgit as of end March 2020, has now risen to 1.06 trillion ringgit, or 61.4% of the GDP. Debt servicing charges, which made up 8% of federal government revenue in 2008, has also surged past the 18% mark in 2021. In a rising interest rate environment, it is normal for Malaysians to question the rising debt charges. However, the question looms on whether or not the country is in debt, like Sri Lanka.
I think at the start of the year, we said that Malaysia's GDP will be trading between 4 and 5%. After the recent Q2 numbers, we expect the economy to grow between 6.5 and 7%. It is based on the premise that macroeconomic stability remains pretty strong. When I talk about macroeconomic stability, I talk about political stability, economic stability, and financial stability. FDI numbers are coming up. The aggregate demand, the domestic demand, is pretty solid at the moment. You see the consumption patterns are on the rise ever since the economy has opened. And most importantly, the government has done vaccination of almost 98% of the population, which is pretty significant. And that has given a boost and support to the government to open up the economy much faster than many other governments. Overall, if you see the trade numbers have touched 270 billion. They are up 43%. In first half of the year, the trade numbers are up 28%. So that really drives the GDP outlook. In terms of numbers, yes, we have always followed Bank Negara's numbers, and we think that these numbers are quite accurate. And Bank Negara has always been quite accurate in terms of the projection when it comes to GDP. So overall, I think we have revised our forecast for Malaysia this year, and we expect that Malaysia's GDP will be trading between 6.5 and 7% this year. And we at Juai IQY remain quite buoyant on the economic outlook.
The federal government has allocated a total of 140 million ringgit to the Supplemental Food Assistance Program, or PMBT. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said this would benefit over 225,000 children under Tabika KEMAS and over 9,700 preschoolers under Taska KEMAS nationwide.
KEMAS merupakan salah satu cerita kejayaan kerajaan, success story. Ramai di kalangan yang berjaya hari ini, yang menjadi pemimpin hari ini, asalnya sebahagiannya besarnya dididik, mendapat pendidikan awal daripada KEMAS, terutamanya masyarakat luar bandar. Sebab itulah kerajaan sentiasa menyokong KEMAS ini. Di Bera, saya mengambil pendirian sejak daripada mula menjadi ahli Parlimen Bera untuk menjadikan pendidikan sebagai agenda utama kita. Bukan sahaja di peringkat KEMAS, tetapi di peringkat sekolah dan sebagainya.
He said this when launching the Jom Masuk Kampung program and Bera KEMAS Potential Day 2022 at Felda Triang 3 in Pahang. Also present during the ceremony is Rural Development Ministry KPLB Secretary General Datuk Ramlan Harun, KEMAS Director General Datuk Muhammad Yasid Bidin, and Pahang Public Works Transport and Health Committee Chairman Datuk Sri Nurul Azali Sulaiman. Welcome back to TVS Nightline. Now onto some global updates. Germany's 5 alpine glaciers may disappear within 15 years. This is the hypothesis made by Christoph Meyer, a glaciologist from the Bavarian Academy of Sciences. Several factors catalyzing this phenomenon not only relate to global warming due to gas emissions, but also take into account the Sahara dust cloud that took place early in 2022.
Schnee hat eine sehr, sehr helle Oberfläche. Das heißt, wenn die Sonne auf den Schnee scheint, dann wird das meiste der Sonnenenergie reflektiert und wird nicht zur Schmelze des Schnees verwendet. Wenn jetzt aber auf dieser Schneeoberfläche dunkler Staub oder dunkler Sand drauf liegt, dann absorbiert dieser Sand die Strahlung der Sonne und diese Wärme, die dabei entsteht, die geht dann direkt in die Schmelze des Schnees über. Und das hat eben dazu geführt, dass in diesem Frühjahr vor allem an den bayerischen Gletschern, wo ja eigentlich gar keine so geringe Schneeauflage war, im Gegensatz zu vielen anderen Regionen in den Alpen, dass dort eben die Schneedecke relativ schnell verschwunden ist.
The snow depth of one of the glaciers, Zugspitze, recorded the lowest level since records began in 1901. This year's high temperatures and low rainfall have made it harder for ice to form, prompting lower survivability of the glaciers.
Die deutschen Gletscher, da ist die Prognose deutlich schlechter. Für die kleinen Gletscher, also in Berchtesgaden, da wird es noch einige Jahre sein. Und für die 2 größeren, den nördlichen Schneeferner und den Höllentalferner, da sind es vielleicht noch 10 oder 15 Jahre, aber dann wird wahrscheinlich dort auch Schluss sein.
Meyer added the most important measure to reduce the melting of these glaciers is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The correlation between climate and gas emission, Meyer said, is so clear that it is the easiest area that it should be focused on.
With heavy rain in France and drought in Spain, it seems China is having its own share of weather problems. A popular area of China's Chongqing along the Yangtze River is deserted as the scorching heat is searing through the city. A few people were seen walking past with umbrellas just to prevent getting sunburned.
Li Wei, a 24-year-old tourist traveling from Yunnan, said the city's heat felt like a sauna.
每天出来外面就感觉在蒸桑拿，然后每天一出来全身都湿透了，很爽。昆明这段时间的话，大概在22度左右，这边的翻了2倍，就很爽。每天出来就一直流汗，一直流汗。本来人也比较小胖，然后就流汗就流的特别多，特别多。然后他们说现在重庆好像是全国的最高气温吧。
Offices in the city have been turning up the air conditioning from time to time and sometimes turning it off to reduce electrical loads and prevent the circuit breakers tripping.
办公室空调有影响，现在大家都是空调都不会全开了，都轮流着开，并且把温度设置高一点，能关的电都会关掉，要不然就会负荷太高了。负荷太高的话，就有时候会引起跳闸，或者说整个负荷高的话，可能就会引起短时间的停电。
Ever since the city was hit by a rare heat wave, 66 rivers across 34 counties in Chongqing have dried up, also showing a district in Chongqing to be China's hottest, reaching 45 degrees Celsius.
Songstress Datin Alia will be making her second appearance in TVS, as she will soon be performing for the second time in Sarawak. She will also be sharing exclusive stories on her upcoming single, Thank You Allah, on Sejahtera Asia, 7:45 a.m. with hosts Juzak and Sharon, only on TVS Astro Channel 122 and My Freeview. See the world closer with TVS as we bring you the latest news updates, both locally and internationally, just a click away by heading on to our website at www.tvstvmy or follow us on our social media platforms. That's all the time we have for TVS Nightline. Once again, I'm Muhammad Yusuf. Thank you for watching and good night.